much, Raymond. You'll see tonight that we have a lot of people from the labor movement, and that's for a reason. Robert was, of course, a big friend of the labor movement, out on all these protests, defending workers, walking the picket line. He walked the Protocol Herald strike line every single day of that strike for how long was it? Over a year, alongside those journalists, and then encouraged them in that work where they had the alternate site, which is some of the best journalism we actually saw in this province. It's a shame that site didn't continue. So I do want to call forward Debbie on behalf of the Halifax and Dartmouth District Labor Council. I'm sure I have that wrong. Are you here? Ah, there you are. I'm sorry, I just cut you off.
It's okay. Thank you. So my name is Debbie Richardson, and I'm the president of the Halifax Dartmouth District Labor Council. I'm here tonight to bring condolences to Robert's friends and family on behalf of the over 25,000 union members represented by the Labor Council. Robert was a voice for the labor movement and for social justice groups. He brought attention to issues that were not widely reported on in the regular media. He also gave opportunities to people who were not trained journalists to write about stories that had meaning to them. He was always there when there was a picket line and a rally, and always had an insightful story on the issues of the moment. His passing has left a void in the local media that will be very hard to replace, and as the previous speaker said, hopefully in the future something will be put together to carry on his legacy. So again, our condolences from the Halifax Dartmouth District Labor Council, and keep fighting on in the spirit that Robert has left behind for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And the chairs are donated by Labor. The tent and the coffee and the cookies are donated by Labor. The interpreters are donated by Labor. So much tonight in tribute to Robert has been resources from the labor movement to show their love and respect. And they do want to remind us there is a guest book in the tent. Please do sign it with your memories of Robert so that we can get that to his family. We're going to pause for a chant here. I led the last one, but Darius wrote these chants, so let's have Darius lead us in a chant.
All right, since we just heard from Debbie from the Labor Council, we'll do this one here. So it's the tyrant's foe, the people's friend, the working class we will defend. Got that down? The tyrant's foe, the people's friend, the working class we will defend. The tyrant's foe, the people's friend, the working class we will defend.
The tyrant's foe, the people's friend, the working class we will defend.
The tyrant's foe,
The people's friend,
the working class we will defend. I'm calling up someone else for the next one though.
Yeah, we'll share chant duties. Now I want to call forward Jonathan Gridley, and I do urge you, if you go to the memorial page on Facebook, you'll see a number of really wonderful tributes, some of which are going to be read out tonight. And there's a really beautiful video by Jonathan, and I urge you to watch that with his accounting of the impact that Robert had on him, his writing and his voice. But he's also here to share that in person. So please welcome Jonathan.
Been a while since I've actually spoken in front of people. A couple of years I was at tenant advocacy mostly. But for those who haven't seen my video that I made, which actually took me a few times to actually do, when I got started in tenant advocacy, it was just because while living in Nova Scotia, I wanted to see what I could do as a tenant. And when I went to a Halifax meeting hosted by Nova Scotia's Acorn, I got pulled into it. More volunteered than anything. But Robert was there at that meeting, and to be honest, I was just thinking, oh cool, a reporter. Don't have any experience with those at the time. Robert was talking to me about, he's seen how nervous I was when I started talking in front of people because I was kind of pulled into the limelight. Did not like that whatsoever. Introvert, totally not my thing. But Robert seen me nervous, and in between when I wasn't talking, he would talk to me about getting to know me. What he really thought some of the ramblings I did was really good, and was giving me words of encouragement on how to deal with any recoil, any mental headspace I have on my own, and to really be able to focus on that. At first, I thought he was just trying to, it was his job to do so, and then he revealed that he was just doing it because he was retired. That was his passion. Honestly, thought he was crazy, but at the time. But every other meeting and rally I hosted throughout the years, he was always there, giving me words of encouragement, and more I gained admiration for him. And it got to a point where I was disappointed on rallies I may have been to. Yeah, he wasn't there. Robert kind of became like a local hero for me, just because of the fact that without even trying, he became like almost an important public figure at that rally for hiding in the shadows. With him taking pictures, I didn't even have to message him about something like, "Hey Robert, can you show up with something?" No, he was already there. He, inviting or not, he was there. It was deals with the public. And all the tenancy and advocacy stuff that I done, I didn't realize honestly how much Robert meant until I heard about his passing, and it hit me so unexpectedly so hard. When I made the video that I shared on the memorial page, for those who don't know, I do a lot of videos to help educate the public. But when I did that video, that took more out of me than I ever thought. Just because as I was talking, I was remembering all the flashbacks of Robert being there as if it happened yesterday. And I got a really bad memory, so I was surprised that came up. I made damn sure I was going to be here tonight just because of the fact that I wanted to hear the life of Robert that I didn't know, that was behind the camera. I really wanted to get to know him like everyone of you guys get to know him, or know him more. So I do thank you guys for having me tonight, and I do thank you for taking time to listen to me ramble.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And there is no such thing as rambling. And Robert would definitely say that if you're speaking from a sincere place and speaking who you are, then you are not rambling. We all know, too, that we would get the mainstream crowd in our events in the media, and if they were tonight, they'd say a few dozen people gathered on Spring Garden. And he'd read the Advocate, and he'd say 300 people. He always gave us the most generous counts for our rallies. The peak amount, plus everybody else we had with us in our heads. So we always got the best count from Robert. We all appreciated him for it. He wasn't making things up, but he never lowballed us. He never had to do both sides. He never had to speak to the person opposing us. He was never scared. He was threatened to take down stories. People often threatened him about what he was doing. This isn't real journalism. You're not doing a balanced job. And he did not care. That's not what he was about. He was about making sure that people were heard. He was about joining you in that march. He didn't care about the idea of being objective. He did not think journalism was some kind of game that you played with the rules. He knew it was about people and getting down there. So all 500 of us here tonight pay tribute to Robert. I'm going to call next Vicki Levac. Vicki is going to be speaking. Robert, as we know, and as you're getting, I hope as you see through this evening, you're seeing so many different movements, so many different people, the different communities that Robert was part of. So we've heard labor, we're hearing African Nova Scotian people, Mi'kmaq, Indigenous people, all these movements, and we're going to continue that. So Vicki is an amazing advocate with the disability community, does super important work on things like housing, on ableism, on the discrimination, all those barriers, and we're so thankful you're speaking tonight, Vicki.
Thank you, and thank you for being my mic stand. As she said so elegantly, my name is Victoria Levac, and I am the spokesperson for the Disability Rights Coalition of Nova Scotia, as well as a bunch of other things I don't have time to get into. But that's my main gig. I never got the chance to know Robert personally, and that'll be one of the greatest losses of my life. Ugh. He gave a voice to the voiceless, and I think what that means, though, is everybody has a voice. You just gave them a platform to use it. And he showed me and a lot of other people that I know I wanted to be a journalist, but they always said you have to be objective, you have to show both sides, and that he taught me that was bullshit. That sometimes it is not a this and that issue. Sometimes it is just as bad as you say it. Sometimes certain sides do not get to be defended because what they're doing is evil. And he didn't stand for evil. He stood against it. And that took a lot of courage. And I'm very grateful. He gave me the choice and the opportunity. Although I never wrote for the Advocate, I had articles written about me for the Advocate. And I'm grateful he gave me a chance to speak and a platform with which to do so. When I saw his coverage of what happened on August 18th, I was devastated, and thank God he was there, because the way the other press viewed it again was a both sides issue, and I said, no, police during that raid acted like thugs and were bullies to the homeless who are there because they have no other choice. They don't have options, or the options you give them are not appropriate or safe. So because of that article, I have joined the PADS organization, which stands for Permanent, Accessible, Dignified Housing, Safer Housing, which I think people, regardless of ability or how much money you make or anything about you, everyone deserves. So thank you for being a voice for the people. Robert, thank you for giving us a chance to speak our minds and rest in power.
Rest in power. Thank you so much, Vicky. I'm looking for a chant, but that means, Darius, I'm going to make you come back. I know you're trying to. Oh, Kaide is going to lead the chant. What are you going to chant?
The tyrant's foe is all of us. United, there's no stopping us. The tyrant's foe is all of us. United, there's no stopping us. The tyrant's foe is all of us. There's no stopping us. The tyrant's foe is all of us.
He just got a test.
Thank you, Kaide, for that chant. We have people here of all generations. Next up, I want to call for Catherine Winkler. Many of us attend a protest in November, which I always say is the small but mighty protest outside the Halifax International Security Forum, another forum where many people never cover that protest. And Robert was always there as part of the peace movement. So welcome Catherine Winkler from Voices of Women.
I'm happy to be all the generations. Thank you. It's great to be here to remember. What is a sensible response to injustice in the world? I look at all of you today gathering to honor Robert, and what I see is the sensible response to injustice in the world in Mi'kma'ki. That response includes a tireless presence, showing up, saying yes, offering again and again, many times beyond what we thought we could do. and Robert was there. A sensible response to injustice looks like baby Jasmine dangling on a knee at the People's Park, and it looks like Jacob dangling from a tree to stop the spray of glyphosate. It looks like the puppy sitting on the 50-foot Nova Scotia Voice of Women for Peace banner, no new fighter jets. And what I wanted to mention is the last time I contacted Robert recently, it was to invite him to write a letter for a project at Pier 21 called Message in a Bottle, acknowledging the 15 ships that returned to Sierra Leone. And I invite you to do so, and I know some of you here have. But today I picked up some high school letters, and I think in a way, Robert's kind of speaking to me through this particular letter because he would respond. So I'm just going to read it. It's from a student at Citadel. Dear people on the ship, what you have just experienced in Nova Scotia happens many, many more times. It's even happening in my time period. You were promised many things by the government, and those promises never happened. This is happening right now to the Indigenous people of Canada. They were promised things like clean drinking water, but it still hasn't happened. It's very interesting to learn about your experiences and see how time just repeats itself. Hope you are staying safe. And Robert would be there to answer that call and to give that hope that we are not going to keep repeating that this is about change. But my question that I ended up with after is also, who are we going to call now? And I don't have that answer. I'm part of the, the untrained writers. I'm very proud to be part of that section. But I know that Robert Devet's legacy of telling the stories is alive right here in gratitude, admiration, and the unwavering hope that together we can make this happen. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm going to keep going through this list. I'm saying that because I know sometimes people stand there and like, what is happening now? So there are a few more speakers, and then we are going to move into projecting. So we thank you all for standing here and listening. Feel free. I mean, I know the grass isn't that dry, but you can also go move to the benches and sit. This is an informal space. You don't have to, rigidly stand there. If you need for your own comfort to move, sit on the wall, sit on the benches. We respect that. Go ahead. I want to call forward now Stacey Gomez, representing No One is Illegal. She also has written in the Advocate many pieces, and so Stacey is here tonight to share her thoughts. Please welcome to the steps, Stacey Gomez.
Hi everyone. So as Elle mentioned, I knew Robert in my role as a member of No One is Legal Halifax Chipuktuk, as a contributor for the Nova Scotia Advocate, and also as a community member. And I can't remember when I met Robert, but I remember that he wrote a piece and interviewed me when we relaunched No One is Legal Halifax Chipuktuk over 2 years ago. And I feel like he's been there every step of the way, which has been incredible to see. And he covered most of our actions, and I would see him regularly at cross Canada conference calls on migrant justice. And he was always amplifying the importance of migrant rights in Nova Scotia. Unfortunately, I feel like so much media in Nova Scotia and probably in other parts of the country treats migrant rights as a fringe issue, but not Robert and not the Nova Scotia Advocate. Robert really recognized that migrants are part of our community and are integral to the fabric of this province. And that was reflected in the Nova Scotia Advocate. And I really appreciated that from him. As an editor, a journalist, and a person, he was incredibly supportive. I remember one of the interviews that I had with him, he was like, oh, you could do this in your sleep, no worries. Which I really appreciated his supportive spirit. And he was and is such an important member of our community. And I feel fortunate to have known him and to have worked with him. And he will be missed. Thank you. I was trying to make Stacy lead a chant. This one is, they all start the same. The tyrant's foe, the people's friend, borders we will fight to end. The tyrant's foe, the people's friend, borders we will fight to end. The tyrant's foe,
The people's friend, borders we will fight to end.
Woo.
The people's friend, borders we will fight to end.
All right, thank you, everybody. You're getting the hang of these chants. They all start the same. That's what makes them good to do over and over again. Next, I want to call up an extremely prolific writer for the Nova Scotia Advocate. Articles, constantly, so much work that he put into the Advocate to bring us the voices of people living on social assistance, people living so-called forgotten in this society, because they're not really forgotten. We just pretend to forget about people so we don't take accountability. So we've all read so much important work from Kendall Worth. So Kendall, please, please, please come forward. Everybody welcome Kendall. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. All right. So anyway, I'm here tonight for the same reason that all you are, because Robert Devet will be well missed by everyone and everyone who ever knew him from any capacity. But yeah, as Jonathan Brigley mentioned in his speech, it's all about the man behind the man as to what makes it important, as to why we all have to remember Robert Devet. In my experiences from knowing him as a person and as a journalist / editor, I've learned a lot from him over the years, like being one of the co-writers, and I was very honored right from when the Nova Scotia Advocate first began to have the, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but to be part of helping Robert Devet in his path of getting his work out and being one of the writers myself. And as Al Jones mentioned, I was the one writer who brought the voices forward of people who live in poverty and the consequences of people living in poverty. And I've made a lot of good other contacts in the community through my journalism, people who support my work, and without Robert, like most of the stuff that I've written, like would have never have been done. I mean, it still might have been written, but it would have stayed hidden. It would have never gotten published without Robert. And even before Robert Devet came into my life, I've been a poverty activist in other capacities. I don't know how many of you out there remember the days when we used to have the old Street Feet newspaper here in Halifax, but my advocating for poverty and to get poverty-related issues resolved and to make things better for people have actually started back in the days of the Street Feet newspaper, because I used to be heavily involved with that, and that was in the late 90s / early 2000s. And then I got involved with Halifax Media Co-op and did some writing for them, and that's when I first met Robert, was my days of being involved with that publication, the Halifax Media Co-op. And then I moved on to writing for the Nova Scotia Advocate. Robert has also supported me in another area of my life, which was kind of relating to my writing for Nova Scotia Advocate / Media Co-op before that. It had a direct relationship in one way, but it didn't in another. But Robert and I were both involved with a group called the Benefits Reform Action Group, which Robert Devet played a small part out of the bigger group of us that helped get that group started. And it was because of me mentioning the Bragg group in some of my earlier articles I've written is what played a part and why the Bragg group has lasted for as long as it did. And it was because of Robert is why we were able to get our other social media advertising out for Bragg. Anyway, I just want to say that it was saddened for me to have learned that Robert has passed away on the day that he did. I knew there was a reason as to why those 2 days, Monday and, like, Robert passed away on Monday, and I didn't find out about it until Wednesday of that week. But I knew there was a reason as to why Robert was not answering my emails that I sent him on the 2 days prior to me finding out about his passing. And now we all know the reason, of course, because he's gone. He will be well remembered by everyone and anyone who's ever known him. The people I used to advocate for my journalism, a lot of these people you will not see out at protest and march and stuff, and you won't see these people organize a protest amongst themselves to protest things like wanting to see an increase in the income assistance rates, to get a lot of the other bureaucratic and systematic nonsense policies of the Department of Community Services changed. You won't see them protest that stuff because they are scared to come forward about their situations. And one of the things that I used to highlight in my articles is things like the low income assistance rates, the bureaucratic nonsense and systematic problems that the Department of Community Services puts you through in order to qualify you to receive income assistance under our provincial system, and the other issues that people are having with community services, and how the systematic problems and bureaucratic nonsense of DCS provokes you to live the life of loneliness and social isolation and have to depend on places like the soup kitchens and standing in line at the food banks in order to have a life where you get out of your apartment and socialize with people. That's example of the stuff that I used to highlight through my journalism. And I am a believer in the fact that people should not have to depend on the things that I just mentioned in order for them to get out of their life and have a social life. People should not have to depend on that stuff. Like, they depend on that stuff for socializing as well as going to these places to get the free meal / free food that they offer. And to top that off, in some other articles I've written, I also touched on how some of the people who are part of the community of people who my journalism used to be about, also have mental health issues. And some of these people, they actually, like, at times check themselves into the QE2 emerge only because they need human contact at the time of showing up. Something else that should not be happening. If the income assistance rates were significantly higher than they are now, that would solve the problem. If there were a wider range of job opportunities, like, now, the people I advocate for, you do have a portion of people who can't work at all, but then some of these other people can handle part-time work where they don't work like a full 8-hour day, but they could work like half of that type of day, like 4 hours or something like that. If part-time work, like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, was available to them, they can do something like that. Every situation is different from one situation of one person who I used to advocate for to the next. And with seeing that we have Gary Burrow with us tonight, something else I want to touch on is the NDP is a big believer in rent control. If we had rent control in Nova Scotia, that would solve some of the other problems that the people I advocate for have been having throughout my whole time of journalism. And over these past couple of months prior to Robert's passing, we've seen this issue getting worse instead of better because the amount of homeless people we have here in Halifax is increasing. And no, there's no excuse for that. Another thing that would solve this problem is if we had a basic guaranteed income during the time when COVID first started, that the federal government had that $2,000 a month available for CERB, that made life somewhat. Now, not everyone in the community I advocate for qualified for that $2,000 a month, but some of them who work at part-time jobs did qualify for it. And they found that their lives for that short period of time they were receiving CERB was much better than when they lived on income assistance and with the money they make working from their part-time job supplementing that income assistance. Now, some of these people are transitioning back on income assistance. Some have already over the past few months. It depends on whether they got transitioned over to EI or not. Every case is different. But anyway, I could go on, but I do want to be courteous and think about time. So I'm going to wrap up what I'm saying here by losing Robert Devet, losing the Nova Scotia Advocate means that we are going to lose a voice, but I am going to live the next month being confident in doing what I can to try and make something happen to get a publication going. Now, I have a lot to learn. This is why I cannot put the 100% effort into getting something going myself that Robert Devet did, because I don't have the same technical skills that Robert did in order to keep something like that going. So I'm not going to be able to do it without help and training. But I will be confident that something will happen. And I've already had some people contact me with offers to want to do something to help me keep that going. I'll provide more details over Facebook and Lee's offers as time goes on. All right, thanks for the opportunity to allow me to speak, and
Thank you so much, Kendall, and thank you also for giving us a rousing political speech as well as a memorial to Robert. I have here an announcement for Mawiomi Gathering. So it says, Stand for Indigenous Fishers. And this is October 19th at 1 p.m. It is when? At 1 p.m. And it is at the DFO office, which is on 1 Challenger Drive in Dartmouth. So Stand for Indigenous Fishers, October 19th, 1 p.m. If you have more questions, Matthew here can fill you in. And we also hope to see people there, because we don't just show up tonight, we show up every day and every night until justice is done. We have a few more speakers, and then we will be moving to projections, so we will keep going, but we're moving towards the end. I'd like to call forth Rana Zaman, who's going to speak on behalf of the Muslim community. Rana, another person often featured on The Advocate who worked closely with Robert. So Rana is going to share some words. Please welcome Rana Zaman.
Thank you. I'm part of a community that belongs, like many here, and Robert was our champion. I wrote on Facebook, I didn't know how to write what I was feeling, other than that I felt one pillar of my strength was taken away from me. Elle has been the other rock. She has always shown up to so many of our events, no matter how last minute it's been. And Robert was the other person. And it made our events wonderful knowing they were there. And they brought forward the causes that many mainstream media and even the public is not aware of. He was more than someone who gave voice to the voiceless. He was a mentor, he was a friend, and for me, he was someone who encouraged me to write, to publish, and he was a confidant. Even most recently, as Judy and Larry know, he and I had a heart-to-heart discussion, and I shared a lot of personal information with him. And I said it was all off the record. On the one hand, he got very ticked off at me for saying it was off the record. But on the other hand, he was a true gentleman, and he wrote his article without any of that information that I shared with him. And you don't find that very often, that kind of integrity. I don't know how we are going to recover. I don't know how I will recover, and I feel the Muslim community. I can't speak for every single person, but he was there for all our events. He tried his best, and he wrote about it, he covered it, he validated it. There is no other like him. And I pray he is at the highest of places. I know he didn't believe in stuff like that. Wherever he wants to be, I hope he is there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rana, and thank you also for showing us your vulnerability and emotion tonight, because I know so many people feel the same way. I'm going to do a chant. This one doesn't start with the tyrant's foe. This one starts, unite and write, and strike and fight, advocate for what is right. Unite and write, and strike and fight, advocate for what is right. Unite and write, and strike and fight, advocate for what is right. Unite and write, and strike and fight, advocate for what is right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much to our interpreters. It's so hard to be standing here, especially some of us that speak fast, my bad, to be doing all of this. It's amazing. Thank you for making this event accessible to everybody. I'm going to call back Dave to give us your personal remarks. Then Miss Lynn, Dr. Lynn Jones, you are next. And then Michelle is going to read tributes from the memorial page in the family. And then we are closing off speakers. So these are sort of, in other words, your last chances if you want to come forward. But David, thank you. Welcome back. I said your name wrong last time. David Lauder, sir, you said. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I like it. She's got a great voice, doesn't she? I'm gonna share a couple of stories of Robert, and this flag has a lot of meaning, because the first time I met Robert, I said, "You want me to do the Angry Indian?" Right? Because everybody wants that, right? So I took the flag and I went, "Arr!" like that, and he took the picture, right? And that was at an anti-fracking rally. So I get a phone call a couple months later from my sister up in Toronto. She says, "What the hell are you doing in the Toronto Star?" Right? Anyway, she forwards me the picture, and the headline reads, Federal government keeps eye on, keeps eye on Indian protesters. Right? And I'm like, oh, wow, that guy's got power. Right? And so, you know, and I was working away at my job and trying to organize pathways to shipbuilding and get that off the ground. And, you know, I reached out to Robert and I said, you know, I'd like to do some follow-up with this. And he said, well, meet me at the Humanity Cafe and we'll have a coffee and we'll talk. And I'm like, wow, who's ever done that for me? Right? Who's ever said, let's sit down and talk? You know, usually it's like the quick flip and then they put words in your mouth and it shows up all different. So anyways, I went and met him. And, you know, we're sitting there having our coffee and we're talking and he's jotting stuff down here and there. And I look at him and I said, well, I said, my big problem is I work with a bunch of old, I said, you know, I don't know how I'm going to say they're politically correct, but, you know, the old white boys club. And he goes, yeah, that's correct, right? And, you know, right there I knew he was going to print what I said, right? Not take what I wanted, what he wanted to make it, and you know, make it gentle and soft. He had the punch to it, and you know, the article came out great, and you know, I'd seen him at other marches, other rallies, and you know, he was constantly there. So for September 30th, the Truth Reconciliation Day, you know, I thought, well, I reached out to CBC, I reached out to CTV, I reached out to morning news, you know, radio stations, and I thought, well, I'll include Robert in on this too, because I was trying to get ahead of the curve for once, right? And then I got the email back that he had passed away. And I thought, you know, there goes my voice. the voice that I just finally got. You know, it was profound to know that somebody took that interest in what I was saying and put the value to it. And I think that's a hard thing in today's media. There is no value. It's all fluff to make us forget about life for a while and move on, right? And while everything in the background keeps on happening. And I want Robert to enjoy his spirit journey. You know, he's moved on to the great writing gig in the sky, right? And you know, I will always have that spot that he was there for the people, and that's all I got.
Thank you. And now, we could not speak about Robert without having Dr. Lynn Jones here to share her experience with Robert. Lynn has so much work on The Advocate, but beyond that, Robert was a fellow archivist as well. The Advocate was not just reporting. It's a place that compiles all our press releases. Every statement that we ever made, when you want to go back and say, what were we doing in the prison rights movement in 2017? You go to The Advocate and you find an archive of everything we were saying and releasing that it is not available anywhere else. And of course, Dr. Lynn, as a fellow archivist, knows well what it takes to do that. So please welcome Dr. Lynn, Elder Lynn, my mentor, my mother in the movement, the great love of my life, Dr. Lynn Jones.
Good evening, everyone. And I have to say, as with I'm sure all of you, that we gather here this evening with mixed emotions. Am I right? Is that true? There's so many mixed emotions. But I must say that I feel so much that I'm with family tonight. And there's so many in this huge, how many people was it? 500? Oh, no, I counted. I stopped at 500 and it was still going after that. My gosh, 500, are you kidding? And I looked and I got to talk with many people tonight, and I'm thinking that we don't give ourselves credit often for the great work that we're doing here in Halifax. We really don't. When you think of the representation of communities here tonight to honor one of our own, right? We've mentioned there's poverty issues, there's persons with disabilities, there's issues of anti-racism. I know I've left out many, but we're all gathered together in this space with one focus and one ideal and one way to praise and honor one of our own. And we need to congratulate ourselves for knowing how important it was to come together tonight to do that. So give everybody a round of applause. Make sure it's heard to the heavens above and far beyond. It's rare that I do something that, especially that requires so much heart and soul, that I don't reach back into my own culture and my own community to find the depths of my soul. So I would like, and I'm doing this just off the cuff, I didn't even know I would be speaking this evening, and that's the truth. But I, as I sat here, I thought I need to go back home. I need to go to my culture to kind of get a feeling about what I feel about Robert. and what he meant. And there's a song that we sing, a hymn, and it's all it says is, and some of you may know it, it says, hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? So I'm going to sing. Any singers in the crowd? Oh yeah, they're pointing at everybody else. But even everybody can sing. There's a song in your heart. I know there is. So I'll sing a verse, and then I would love if you could join, because it helps me to go back, because Robert really meant a lot to me. And I'm not a great singer, but I'm going to do it. And it goes, hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Use your fingers. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Are you ready? Hush, everybody. Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush. That's it. Hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Okay, you guys, you got no rhythm. It's as simple as that. Now some are getting it, and I'm sorry, but you got to do it again. Okay? Yeah, I don't care if you clap, snap, move your body, do something. You're not that bad. I know it, okay? And think of whose name you're calling, and I know it's Robert tonight. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? You can give yourself a round of applause for that one. Thank you so much. When I heard of Robert's passing, I was in shock. And I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do. But it immediately took me back to the time that I first met Robert. And I didn't know Robert, and I actually received a call from him. And he introduced himself, told me who he was, and said, I'd like to meet with you because I've been following you. I've been watching some of the work that you've been doing in the community. I said, oh yeah, who are you? And he explained, but he said, well, I do some reporting, but I don't know. He's so humble. He said, I don't know if you could really call me a reporter because I'm not your traditional type of reporter. Yeah, you're so right, man. You're absolutely right. So to make a long story short, we agreed to meet on my turf. And my turf was at the Caribbean restaurant on Godicon Street at the time, outside on the picnic tables. And we sit there, as he came towards me, I arrived first, I thought, he doesn't look like a reporter. And he had his traditional hat, and he actually had his camera and his pen and things with him. And he just started right in. Hi, I'm Robert. I'm really pleased to meet you. This is what I do. This is where it came from. And you don't have to do an article with me, but at least can we at least talk? And then you can decide from there. And his traditional line was, listen, I know I'm just a poor white guy that doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what he's saying in terms of issues of anti-racism, but at least I'm willing to learn. And if you would just give me a chance, and if I mess up, be sure to tell me, and I'll try to correct whatever it is that I've said or done. And I thought, what reporter does this? Like, nobody does this. Nobody. So my interest was really tweaked. And then I said, well, you're not recording this, are you? Because he said, no, I don't do anything unless anybody gives me permission. You have to give me permission. I write nothing unless you agree to whatever it is that I write, and you get to review whatever it is that I do, which is totally against everything that we learned in journalism, but that's how I operate. I said, okay, this is kind of neat. I'll work through this. And that was the beginning of a most wonderful and long journey of partnership in so many different areas. When I was sharing with someone, people that Robert had passed, I wanted to tell the whole world. And they said, oh, well, what was he to you? I said, oh, he's my friend. And I thought, well, what is friends? Like, I don't know all that much about him. I knew some. I knew about his partner that he shared over the years and whatever. But I felt really comfortable saying, he's my friend. And that was because of all those conversations where each of us could pick up the phone at any time and talk about the social justice issues of the day, or sometimes things would bother me. Say, Lynn, I don't want to write the wrong thing. I don't know if I'm in the right area. Can you help? And likewise, I would phone him. I'd say, this other journalist did this to me or said this, and why did they do that? And Robert would really help to explain and mentor. So I think it was kind of, we'd say it was a mutual mentorship that that we did along the way. And he was able to surpass and go beyond all those things that usually bind us, like racism and sexism and all those kinds of things. I don't know how it happened, but it just happened. But I thought that I had this unique relationship. Nobody else in the world had this relationship with Robert. And then, as I started to talk to people, particularly in his passing, all these people would say, well, Robert was a really good friend of mine. Robert meant this to me and that to me, and we had these deep conversations, and he'd ask me questions. I thought, he's doing this to everybody, and he made me feel like it was only me. That's probably how I end up spilling my guts to him. But I don't want to hold up things. I don't have an awful lot to say that hasn't already been said, or that you're not saying within your soul. But I will say that I probably had, with that friendship, the same fears that all of you had. It's like, my gosh, he did and reported on things that no other paper, no other reporter, nobody cared about our issues. That we'd get front page. I mean, we're the headlines. Like, well, what happens now? But I can honestly say, and I don't know if this is a faux pas or whatever, I'm so happy that the family made the decision that the Advocate end stops there except for the archives. At first I was really upset like, because I thought, oh, somebody needs to take it over. Somebody needs to do it. But then I thought, gee, that they're just as wise as what Robert was in knowing that no one can fill those shoes. No one can can do that. It's and Robert wouldn't want that. I think that he created all those spaces and showed us a different way so that we can use how he did it and what he did to further fighting the fight that all of us are fighting in our own areas. But now we have a new recipe that we didn't have before. And how we will really pay tribute to Robert is not by necessarily mourning that passing, but showing him that his living, as we say in our culture and in our religion, his living was not in vain. So I leave you with that in terms of what I hope to do for kind of a memory for Robert, is to make sure that I share what he was able to do with us, with others, and so that his living will not be in vain. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss Lynn, and thank you for your singing and for giving other people rhythm. Now that it's dark, we can see behind us a slideshow of Robert's pictures, and I really want to thank Sakura Saunders for putting this together from the Advocate. I think it's really beautiful and epic and appropriate that it's projected onto this building. We really want to thank Nocturne for the projector, for setting this up. And after this event, you can stick around to see a presentation that will be taking place of African Nova Scotian dancers that will also be projected in this space. So they actually gave us this space and held off on that presentation so that we could stand here together. So we're really thankful for Nocturne to that. And as I said, you can see something else, but it's really amazing to see this on this building, as it should be. The people's words should always be written on the monuments, always. So we just have a few more speakers. I am going to call Michelle Millette forward. Michelle is also going to read some of the tributes we have from family members and other people that couldn't be here. So Michelle I know you're working flat out right now out of the cold and obviously dealing with the reverberations of what happened in this space. So we thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi, everybody. I just was standing and noticed when I was listening to Dr. Jones, did we put the flags down? At half mast? Is that where they always stay?
I think that's
Oh, boo.
If you
Okay.
take them all the way down, let's look into it.
Okay, I'm going to read first what Danny Kavanaugh sent. He can't be here tonight. Sisters, brothers, comrades, and friends, I'm sorry that I will not be able to make tonight's memorial event for our friend Robert Devet. Before I share what I would say and wish to say about our friend, I don't think that Robert did not touch an issue important to the 99% in Nova Scotia. He covered many stories and topics that just would not have received legs in our limited mainstay print media in Nova Scotia. Whether it's a labor issue, a poverty issue, a human rights issue, or any other issue, Robert was there. He recognized early on through his media co-op work and later through his paper, The Nova Scotia Advocate, that many in our society needed a voice, and he was there. He understood that we had problems in our province, problems where the voices of the 99% were not getting covered like those of the 1% in any mainstream media. He became our voice through his work. His passing has and will leave a void, as many of us will struggle to fill the void he left in giving rise to our issues that matter to many of us. I will miss our chats and conversations on labor issues, and Robert was the kind of person you would not soon forget once you met him. He didn't judge individuals or their thoughts, but took those thoughts and put them into words through his work. Robert is a testament to life and doing what matters while you're here on earth, and not worrying about how long life is or how good it is, but living a life that makes a difference. Job done, my friend, and mission accomplished. We'll miss you. Hard to read with tears, sorry. We'll miss you, but I will not forget you. And the next one is by Jen Powley. Jen's here tonight, but I'm going to read this for her as well. I have to admit that I did not know Robert in person. He was an entity at the end of my emails, but he was always there as a person who's concerned about what you as an individual had to say. He gave a voice to the people who are too often voiceless. He did not care about your social connections or the interest of special lobby groups. He cared about the people of this province. Kendall Worth has been ignored by most media outlets. He wrote Spare Change and sold it to the Second Cup on Spring Garden Road when it still existed. I used to see him when I and my friends visited the Second Cup because it was across the street from the planning school at Dow. I didn't even realize then how much Kendall contributed, but Robert saw and gave him a byline. Robert was able to see the good in people. He will be missed. I just want to say quickly for myself, I think one of the things that I've said repeatedly, and it kind of echoes what Dr. Jones was saying, is that Robert was my friend. And I hope that other people in my life and other people that I do activism with, and I hope we all do the same thing, we let each other know how much we appreciate each other, because I don't know that Robert honestly would have expected this or what he would have expected, but after making some posts and the more people that I've spoken to on social media, many people are just saddened even to know that his journalism still isn't going to exist and they can't rely on, you know, having those things covered that weren't covered before. So just something for us to think about.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We have a couple more speakers. Tony, I forgot about you, but I didn't forget about you. But we're going to go to Darius, and then you're going to close us out. And Tony and Suzanne have been live streaming all night, so those arms get tired and you have to hold up that phone, so we thank you very much. But now you've been hearing the chants. Darius is going to lead some more chants and also speak a bit.
Yeah, I'm just going to do some more chants to kind of raise the energy in here. So let's do this one again. The one that Elle did before. I'm going to do it with a little bit of a different rhythm. So it's unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. Unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. Unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. Unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. All right. So yeah, Robert is deeply missed by all of us, and as many other people here, I'm sure, you know, my relationship with him revolved around organizing and media, right? So when I first moved to Halifax, as a union organizer, a fresh union organizer out there trying to like make some changes, you know, get people organized. I had my first union drive and I was really excited about it. I was like, oh man, all the media is gonna want to know about this, these like underpaid, screwed over workers, you know, rising up against this billion-dollar company and getting organized. This is great. And I put out a press release to like every media contact I could find in the city. And thank fucking God we had Robert, because he's the only one who showed any interest in coming and covering this story of these workers who had been screwed over just time and time again by these big companies. And you know, and thankfully their story and that story will be in the archives now, like indefinitely, right? And the next time that I had a big story, I put it out again to all the media, and it was a bonanza. You know, we had the organizing down at Founders Square around the terminated janitors. You know, where all of the workers of African descent were not kept on, and the workers of, the white workers were by the new cleaning company, and there was some protests around that, some pickets around that, and all the media jumped in, and Robert was there too, and Robert went deeper. Robert was allied. You could tell that lots of the other media were looking for angles to discredit workers, looking for angles to, be quote unquote neutral, but Robert really wanted to give voice to those workers in those moments. And since then too, there's been so many times when Robert was the one you could count on. You could put out a press release and you would know at least something would happen. Like someone would cover it, someone would write about it. That story would not be completely silenced, and it's definitely something I hope that we all kind of take to heart and think about moving forward, right? I think in Robert's legacy, we should try to help other up and coming, individuals, individual journalists who aren't tied to any particular media incident, to tell the stories of all of us, all of the people, and be the people's friend. I think we need to try to help other journalists fill those shoes in different ways. And so hopefully we can come together to do that as a community, because our community needs it. And yeah, I'm just very saddened by the loss, but also very happy to have been here, and been in the streets with Robert so many times. And I hope we have the energy to go into the streets again today in his honor. At the end of this, there was wishes to, cause some trouble, in his memory. So I hope that we can do that. Anyways, everybody feeling like doing a little bit of like chanting and getting the energy up, and who's ready to march at the end of this? All right. Unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. Unite and write and strike and fight. Advocate for what is right. Advocate for what is right. Thank you all. I think Tony, you're up next, if I'm correct.
And while Tony is speaking, maybe we can start to pass some fire around if people still have candle space. So, thank you so much, Tony. And please close this out. Everybody welcome Tony Tracy.
Thanks, Al. And it's striking to me, the diversity of the crowd that we have amongst us today, in terms of both people and our backgrounds, but also, of course, in terms of the social movements that each of us have been engaged in for many years. I first met Robert when he started work as somebody who had just retired and started a second career, an unpaid career, as a journalist at the Halifax Media Co-op. His first article at the Media Co-op was about cuts to libraries. On September 12th, 2013, he filed this story with the Media Co-op about how libraries are so important. Municipal cuts to libraries are so tragic, and I think that's one of the many reasons we're standing in front of the old Halifax Memorial Library at this point, because certainly Robert's social movement journalism got its start with an article about libraries. He worked, of course, as folks know, as a volunteer with the Halifax Media Co-op for 3.5 years. In that period of time, he filed well over 300 articles in that period of time. So from September 12th of 2013, his last article for the Media Co-op was December 29th, 2015. And then, like a phoenix out of the ashes, Robert launches the Nova Scotia Advocate on January 1st, 2016 as a new media project at a point at which the Halifax Media Co-op, like many volunteer organizations, had gone through, a period where, there was less energy, and Robert felt, quite rightly, I think it's been proven, that he could focus his work a lot more rather than going to just countless meetings by doing the work that he loved. And Robert said to me many times that he didn't want to spend 40-50% of his time just going to meetings to talk about the work. He just wanted to do the work that he loved. Robert was, in many ways, I think, and I've reflected in the last couple of weeks a lot, thinking about the role he played for our movements in this city over this last decade, that he's been involved as a social movement journalist. And he was a thread
between our movements, whether it was the labor movement, unions, and our picket lines and other actions that we take place, or whether it was anti-poverty work, other economic justice work, anti-racism work and struggles for racial justice, disability and inclusion, environmental and climate justice work, the prison justice work, migrant justice work, justice for refugees, inclusion of immigrants. Robert stood for LGBT liberation, for human rights advocacy, and of course he wrote on the arts as well in profound ways, and supported initiatives like Nocturne, who has lent us this projector for these beautiful displays of Robert's photos, and things like the Mayworks Halifax Festival of Working People in the Arts, which he reported on many, many times. These movements, in many ways, operate in silos, and we work amongst folks who are very like-minded on various issues. And Robert was this thread that ran through all of these different movements, and he oftentimes connected us between movements. We'd have these long chats sometimes into the evening about something going on in the labor movement, and he'd say, you should talk to this person in the climate and environmental justice movement. You should talk to this other person, this other movement. He connected us together. He was a thread that connected us. And I think, one of the things I think that we need to reflect on, after this evening and in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, is how do we connect ourselves together as movements of that sort. Robert also challenged us. There were many calls I took from Robert when he was like, "What the hell is this union doing on this?" And he challenged us, and it made us better, frankly. The fact that Robert, and not just labor, but all of our movements, frankly, he challenged us. He amplified our voices. He was an incredibly patient editor, and anybody who's been edited by Robert over time, he's incredibly patient. Editor. And of course, I have to mention that for 566 days, nearly 19 months, just a couple of days short of 19 months, Robert stood alongside the striking editorial journalists at the Chronicle Herald on their picket lines through 2 winters, nearly 2 years, 19 months, almost every day. And not only did he stand alongside them, but he supported them materially, in fact. At a point before they launched their local express, I remember Robert coming out to one of the rallies and offering to striking journalists who were working, who had very diminished incomes, on picket pay, offering them freelance work for the Advocate. Now, Robert never paid himself. Ever. He was retired as a provincial civil servant. He saw his role with his modest pension as somebody who had retired from the civil service. He saw his role as somebody who could hold the government that's paying him that pension accountable. But what modest donations he was able to get on the donate link at the Advocate or bits and pieces of donations here and there, he put right into the pockets of writers. And that's so tremendous. Our city, Halifax, has been materially diminished by the loss of Robert. There's no question. It's been materially diminished. And I think in terms of a legacy, I think we need, again, to reflect on how we can step out of our silos, move together in struggle together, support each other's movements, support each other's struggles, whether that's in the streets or helping each other write or amplifying each other's voices. But the loss, the diminishment of our city will be felt. There's no question. The role he played is so strong. I will say, L. Jones brought together, very quickly, a few days after Robert passed away, an incredible organizing crew, like a dream team, frankly, of organizing. Folks, L, Lynn Jones, Darius and Sakura, Suzanne McNeil, Tony McAfee from the Postal Workers, Judy Haven, Debbie Richardson from the Labor Council, Stacey Gomez, Darlene Gilbert, and many more. And over this past couple of weeks since Robert passed away, we've had these long Facebook Messenger exchanges. We had 4 lengthy, and I'm not joking, 2-hour long each conference calls. Robert would have hated that. He hated meetings. He really wanted to just get the work done. But I think it's a reflection of and the diversity of that in terms of the movements that those folks come from. I think it's a reflection of how much he really meant to all of us. And I just want to close on that Robert's work was incredibly important to folks who are here tonight, to folks who are not here tonight. I know his family and others are watching on live stream as this is going. And I certainly, I want to say, and I know, I'm sure we'll be saying more in the days and weeks ahead. Many of us are talking about what type of an actual legacy project we can work on for others, that Social Justice Journalism Award, what type of thing. And so we'll be reflecting on ideas in the days and weeks ahead, I'm sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, everybody. We took an executive decision. We're not going to march, but we are going to set off some fireworks. So we are going to end the evening now with some fire. We're going to send Robert into the sky. So we're going to get that organized. Thank you so much to the interpreters. Thank you for your work. I know it's very difficult. Thank you to everybody who spoke, everybody who placed your bodies into this space to celebrate and honor and pay tribute. And thank you to Robert for your voice, for your solidarity, for your comradeship, for your generosity, your kindness, and for everything you gave this city. And we will never be the same without you, but we will commit to moving forward and working together and living out every day what you gave us. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the fireworks.